think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. You know, this is the Motor City, and this is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. We love to celebrate the automotive heritage here in the Grosse Pointes, but we will make no apologies for our decidedly Detroit perspective. Today, we've got a show for you, especially if you've ever driven to downtown Detroit. If you have, you're going to be interested in this show because we're going to talk about the new prospect of tearing up I-375 and either making it great and smooth or making it into a bicycle path. And to walk us through this crazy little proposal that's sitting before us right now that'll change our lives and the way we get in and out of downtown forever for at least the next 50 or 60 years. We have none other than an old friend of mine from Auto Week magazine, one of the greatest freelance journalists in the Detroit area, Dan Brochstein.
Hi, John.
Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
No, that's great having you back. You always appreciate your perspective. You know,
Thanks.
Car guy all these years. You've been in and out of this town so many times. You've been up and down the roads. We worked right down there at the end of I-375 at Auto Week. And it's a pretty big topic.
It is.
And the decisions they make really affect all of us, no matter where. It doesn't mean you just have to live on the east side, no matter where you live. But before we have to do that, guess what we get to do?
News.
News, yes, right. We have to find out what's happening in the news. So I love this first story. You know why? Because this just proves how ripe the auto industry is for technology. Okay, stop it. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. This story is about Ford Motor Company and the Heinz ketchup makers, the Heinz tomato folks, getting together to come up with a solution for all the product waste that they have from making tomato ketchup. That's right, Ford and Heinz are working together to try to come up, what do I do with all these stems and seeds and skins? Apparently, the Ford Motor Company's been working with a bunch of other people. They worked with Coca-Cola, they worked with Nike, Procter & Gamble, but apparently about 2 years ago, they wanted to try coming up with these dried tomato skins and what can they make out of this stuff? How can you make, they have over 2 million tons, 2 million tons of this waste product. And rather than put it in a landfill, Ford says, let's see what we can do out of it. And you know what? They've actually come up with a bioplastic. Right now they're making wiring brackets and that's the inside of the storage bins out of this plant-based plastic, not petroleum-based, which would be better for the environment, right? So this Ford lab is working on how can we use these 2 million tons of tomato parts and make something that's better for the environment. You know, they already use soy for some of their seats. So they'll use soy products. And, you know, and Coca-Cola they use plastics and they redo some of the plastic to make carpeting from bottles, the plastic bottles. They've been doing seat foam work. I mean, to me, this is really interesting. This is why you kids, when you go to Wayne State or U of M or Eastern or wherever you want to go, Michigan State, when you get into this kind of technology, this is really fascinating. To me, it shows you how the car companies are really kind of leading edge innovators when it comes to cool things.
And this wouldn't be a first thing. The interior on my Fusion is upholstered with reclaimed fibers and soy.
So reclaim, like they use old blue jeans and...
Old fibrous material, some cellulose. But it's already started, so to hear this isn't really surprising. It's actually pretty cool.
I think it is really cool, and I love to see it, and I think you'll see more. You know, back in the day, people don't know this about Henry Ford. Henry Ford was into this a long time ago. He actually got the state of Michigan to make license plates out of soy. And because they were using steel, and they could stamp them on of dried soy. It was working out real well until guess what started to happen? The cows on the farms would eat the license plates off the cars. They still could smell that soy. So, anyway, why don't you squeeze out another one here?
Okay, well, this is about Toyota.
Okay.
They have dropped the bomb on just more than 5,300 employees at the U.S. headquarters in Torrance, California. They're moving.
They're not going to be in the...
They're going to be moving their operations to Plano, Texas.
But wait a minute. California is the place where all the trendsetters are, and that's why they moved to California, to be on top of the auto industry. And you mean they're going to Texas?
Plano, Texas. That's where they're going to be be headquartered at.
But what about the 5,300 people? Do they all have to go?
Those are assumed to be skilled labor
Okay.
and assembly line folks.
Will some places have to lose their jobs if they don't want to go? What if
That's
they say,
a good question.
I love California, I'm not going to go to Texas?
Well, some have been offered voluntary buyouts if
buyout,
they
okay.
don't want to move.
Uh-huh.
They're going to keep their design studio
Okay.
and TRD stuff
At the
out
racing-
on the West Coast.
The racing, okay, but
Because you've got a lot of good art schools and engineering schools that are there that turn out real talented people.
wow. Well, people are going to places where they're getting incentives. Folks, we've been talking about this, follow the money. Nissan moved its headquarters. They went out of California, moved it to Tennessee because they were in California. And way back, Honda used to be back in California back in the day, and they moved to Ohio. And because somebody waved a couple of bucks at them,
That's
and
what they do.
California's got run out of cash. Not only don't they have any water, they don't have any money.
And the rents aren't inexpensive there at all. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of people throwing money at people, here's another automaker, Volkswagen, that got into a little tug of war, if you will, with the state of Tennessee. Volkswagen announced we're going to build a new SUV, and they said, hey, Tennessee, they called them up, hey, we want to build it there, but we're going to need some incentives. And Tennessee said, really? I don't think so. So they didn't give them any incentives. So then they started talking about building this new SUV in Mexico. They threatened to move they're down in Chattanooga, by the way. And they said, well, we won't build them in Chattanooga, then we'll build them in Mexico. Well, the automakers got a little bit of a bug in their ear. And what happened? Tennessee caved in. Those lawmakers said, oh, we can't have that. We're going to lose jobs. So they came back and they said, well, at least the sources right now in Germany are saying that Volkswagen is going to do this. Tennessee gave them $300 million worth of tax incentives and other incentives in the state to build the SUV and the volunteer state and keep them there. So when you say, oh, the only people that take government money is General Motors or Chrysler, guess what? Government money is spent on all the import makers to try to locate them here, to give them tax incentives, build a highway for them, whatever they can do. They're all taking government money.
it's true.
You got one?
I do.
Okay.
Fiat Chrysler will be using more 9-speed transmissions. 9-speed, not 5,
I
not 6.
remember when you had a
9.
3-speed, and then you said now it's a 4-speed automatic, and then it was a 5-speed. What happened? How do we jump from 5 to 9?
Well, I tell you,
That's crazy.
the technology's there, and if you remember, they delayed the launch of the Cherokee to make sure that the software was right, so that
Okay.
the driving experience was premium, and that the shifts were smooth. So
But it actually does shift. I mean, it's a 9-speed
it's a
transmission.
9-speed transmission.
Can you feel the 9 shifts?
I would bet you can't. I bet they're pretty imperceptible.
Wow.
But in order to make sure there's no shortage of these transmissions,
Yeah.
Chrysler's begun production of the 9-speed at a new plant in Indiana.
So, well, good. They're building them here.
It's an 800,000 square foot facility,
Yikes.
and it could turn out 800,000 transmissions a year.
Oh, man. So they're going to put them in just about everything.
They're going to put them in a lot.
Wow.
They want to probably put them in cars with the big engines for the fuel economy,
Right.
make them more economical.
Right, we got this killer standard
hybrids.
coming up, and we got to
The CAFE.
somehow make that CAFE standard. And if you can do it with a transmission, remember the CVT?
Yeah.
The constantly
Velocity
variable
variable
transmission
transmission, yep.
with a belt like a snowmobile. And went up and down a cone. There was no shifts at all in that, but those things came and went.
Yeah, it's you either love them or you hate them.
Yeah, I had one in a crossover. And it took a little while getting used to it. But they tell me that they don't repair those, that when they go, you just buy a whole new transmission. Doesn't sound good to me. Also, imagine, ever take apart a transmission? I mean, I once took apart an automatic transmission, and when I went to put it back together, I had all these little extra parts, like little balls and springs. Where did they go?
That's wizardry.
And that was a 3-speed. So can you imagine with a 9-speed? I would have all these little things that I could
rolling over the garage floor.
I'd step on. Yeah, really cool, Dan. I got one for you. Now listen, folks. We're talking about roads today on today's show, but check this out. There is new technology. This comes to us from the Netherlands. The BBC reports this, so you never know what you hear on the BBC. Right. They said that there's a glow-in-the-dark road markings being developed in the Netherlands, and they unveiled this technology over a 500-meter stretch of road in the Netherlands on a piece of highway. The paint that they mark the highway with contains a photoluminescing powder that soaks up the sun's rays. Okay, it's kind of like a solar panel. Okay, and then slowly releases this green glow at night when the sun goes down, and it releases that light and energy so that you can light up the highway with this crazy luminescent glow-in-the-dark paint. And they said that if this works and the technology will stick onto the road well, they can get rid of using street lights, so they don't need street lights. The road would light up with this paint.
And change colors.
Well, could you imagine that? Now, this is what we need in Detroit, because, you know, the scrappers have been stealing all the street lights and the wire.
All the copper.
All the copper. So what are they going to do? Get on the road and then scrape this off with a putty knife? This stuff is useless. See, this would be great. I say bring the glow-in-the-dark roads to Detroit. What a great piece of technology.
I think it's
But we'll be
pretty slick.
talking about roads in a second. But before we do that, we've got a new segment on the show, which we like to bring in right at this time. It's called Car Trivia Time. Now, this is the time where I'm going to ask you out there to put on your thinking caps. We're going to ask you a car trivia question, and then hopefully you'll come back with an answer. And please, don't ask Siri what it is, and then don't cheat. All right, think about it. Now, if you do your homework, you should know this. Here's today's car trivia question. What car, and I need the brand, delivered the very first regular production V12 engine? Not a V6, not a V8, a V12. Who was the first automaker? What car was the first V12 engine in American automotive history? Now, we're going to reveal that answer, and then we're going to put Dan in the driver's seat and have us go over the topic. Now, what do we do with I-375 right after this break? Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today, we're talking to freelance automotive journalist Dan Brochstein. Dan, welcome to Cars in Context.
Great to be here.
Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. We're going to sort out this whole I-375 debacle. Do we make it a bike path, or do we build it? What do we do? But before we do that, we want to give everybody out there the answer to today's car trivia question. Now, if you were just before the break paying attention, you'll recall that I asked you what car delivered the very first production V12 engine, and here is the answer. Drum roll. The answer is these cylinder wars, as we call them, were kicked off in 1915 after Packard's chief engineer, which was Colonel Jesse Vincent, introduced the Packard Twin Sys V12 in 1915. So can you believe it? It was the Packard, Dan. I know you were thinking Cadillac,
Yeah, I was thinking
maybe Lincoln, maybe Mercedes. I don't know. What a great old car. Look at that, a V12 Packard. And for those of you who keep watching our Packard show on Cars in Context TV on YouTube, it's got thousands and thousands of views. There's no greater interest in Detroit than this Packard plant. We'll come back. We're going to have Joe Babias come in and do another show on the Packard plant. It's always cool. Packard was a great old company. But speaking of great old companies in downtown Detroit or in Detroit, we got to get to Detroit. You know, we're here on the east side, you're on the north side, and the west side. All of us that who live around in the Metro Detroit area want to come to the city. We have to drive into the city. I-94 is our main character for here, but we have to turn in downtown. Some of us take the Lodge. Many of us take I-375. Dan, we're at that point now where I-375 has to be rebuilt.
Okay.
All right, now the proposal from MDOT is, why do we just rebuild it? Why don't we change it? And the Greenies, that's why I'm wearing my green shirt today, the Greenies are saying, don't put that highway back the way you had it. It just dumps all this traffic on East Jefferson. Why don't we dump it into like the neighborhoods and then put it into boulevards and slow us down and get us to enjoy part of downtown before we get downtown? So we've had 6 proposals. Now we'll show everybody where the map of where 375, what we're talking about. If you haven't been driving downtown recently, this is I-375. It really crosses there on I-94 and I-75. It's how you really turn off of 94 when you're heading west and go downtown. It's a very important stretch of land, Dan, and I know the Free Press had stories on it, the news had stories on it. Let's talk about this. These opportunities don't come up very often.
Well, that's true. Usually when a freeway is in need of repair, they just repair it.
Yeah, they fix it.
96 is an example of that. They're fixing 96 right now. But this one puzzles me, to be honest with you.
Okay.
In my opinion, this is one of the most useful tracks of freeway. I mean, if you're going downtown, this will dump you right off at the foot of the rent center.
Right.
And then you can proceed up the streets to find parking.
Okay.
So that's always been a quick and easy route. If you can start directing people onto the service streets north of Grand Circus Park,
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot of congestion, especially for people that are going to park the other side of Jefferson. So I don't see the logic behind this, or someone looking at it saying that, well, this freeway is served its purpose. It's time to put something else in there. I don't see the thinking behind that.
Well, we'll show you what we got a little rendering, if you will, show you what I-375 looks like right now. Right now, that's how it looks. You can see that it's actually cut down. You have an embankment. It is a ditch, you know. And right now, we come down to I-375, we make that hard right turn as it comes into Jefferson Avenue, and it dumps the entire freeway traffic right onto East Jefferson, as you say. And it's not a bad thing to me because, you know, you're immediately down there. You can turn right to go to Greektown and get parking at any of the Greektown casinos. You can keep going. There's the the tunnel traffic right to your left. Renson's got a bunch of garages down there. Dan, we dumped off there and we went right to Auto Week. We actually turned left.
Yes.
And dumped there when Auto Week was right there, not in the Strobeway. So, I mean, I see what you're saying, that folks, that you think, well, now is a chance to slow us down. Instead of dumping everybody right downtown, get us into the other areas of downtown. Maybe some people are thinking we should dump them off right at Gratiot or at Mac, or I'm thinking boulevards, even if it's 2 or 3 lanes. To me, it's slowing down the whole process of getting downtown. And when you go downtown, what do you go? I mean, you go for a Wings game, you go to Greektown restaurant. The last thing I want is or go to work.
Right.
Is spend more time.
Absolutely.
The last mile going to take me another 20 minutes.
That's one of the problems they're going to have to face. And I know it's appealing to put traffic on the surface streets. Maybe that's going to help revitalize businesses and retail.
Okay.
And they want to do that. But there's plenty of times when I'm going down to a sporting event, and I don't have to be there at a particular time, I'd take Woodward all the way down anyway. Okay. So I don't think there's a situation of no traffic on Woodward, we need some, versus 375 is congested, because 375 flows pretty good to me.
I think folks, here's what they're saying. Not only by dumping that traffic off into that area, well, the businesses grow, it's a chance for retail development, but they're thinking bike paths, walking paths. Remember the Mount Elliott cut when they used to have the train tracks, they tore up the train tracks. Is that a place where you're going to see a lot of people stopping their cars and driving their bikes?
You know, I don't see a lot of residential development on the other side of 375. You've got everything in Lafayette, Tower Apartments, you've got condos, townhomes there. Nothing so much on the other side. You've got a beautiful river walk, which people use now for a lot of these purposes. But I don't see any real advantage to outdoors people that want to walk the dog or ride their mountain bike to cross where 375 is.
Yeah, folks, this is a situation where when MDOT has a couple of proposals, what happens is in our government, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the greenies, all you greenies out there, the tree huggers, the bicycle guys, you wear your little spandex pants and your cool little helmet, and you want a place to ride your bike. So you're pushing the government to do this for you. The problem is that there's a lot of other people, with a silent majority, if you will, they just want to get downtown, park their car, and go to work, and enjoy that last 15 minutes of travel rather than slow up and to be put into neighborhoods. I'm not sure. I think what's going to happen with 375, Dan, it'll probably wind up being, because we have so many environmentalists and people that want to get their nose in, I think it's going to be like a mixture of both.
Yeah, and I think there's probably room for that thinking. Because one of the questions people have is, how can I get across 375 to go downtown? There are very kind of limited crossing opportunities.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe a wide, planted bridge would be nice.
Okay, I can see.
So I think there's room in the middle for a hybrid solution.
So you're saying we probably have a compromise in some way or another. But folks, let's look at this bike path idea. I just don't. I see it putting maybe it at the Riverwalk or doing more along the river, but to drive north and south between I-94 and even if it's they think they're going to revitalize where the Packard plant is. It's that far north to 94 and Mount Elliott. I just don't see that happening in the near future. No. So to invest in this kind of infrastructure when we've got bridges that are falling down and hitting you in the head, probably not the best investment of your tax dollars, especially, and if you watched our show on what happened to Detroit's roads from hell, Detroit's purgatory of potholes, you know that you're already paid to have all your roads fixed. you put it into a highway fund, but your legislature said, well, look, all this money sitting here, we can't build roads fast enough, so let's go spend it on all kinds of other things. They spent your money on other things, now they want to raise the gas tax. So I think what we got to do is got to be real careful. Let's hear everybody's part of that.
I agree.
Yeah, so 375, we'll live through it, Dan. I appreciate that perspective, and that's why we have you putting it on in car tech. But you know what? We have a really fun part of the show that I want to bring in now. It's a new segment kind of added. It's called Pick of the Week. So this is where we put a picture out. Now, sometimes it's sent to me by one of you. You send it to me, jclor@carsandcontext.com. Other times, we stumble on something on the internet. Some friends will send it to me. You got to see this picture, John, and I put it on the show. Today's picture of the week is, you think Detroit is a tough town? This is a photo taken in Laredo, Texas, where the police were responding to a call. They ran inside the building. When they came outside the building, look what happened to their cruiser, Dan. You think Detroit's a tough town. Those of you in Laredo, Texas, if you're a patrol officer and you came out to see your car, guess what? You weren't going to the next run.
No.
Yeah, because this Crown Vic is missing. I mean, what kind of criminal are you have to be when you see the cops run inside your building and you run out and you steal the tires off the patrol car?
That takes guts. Takes a lot of guts to do that.
So,
I wouldn't do it, but it takes a lot of guts.
well, so thank you for saying that. I'm not going to be planning on visiting Laredo, Texas anytime soon, thankfully. But that pick of the week was sent to me by a friend. I'm just not going to use his name on the air. But thanks for sending it to me. It can be humorous. It can be kind of sad, like that photo.
Yeah,
it can be. But you know, Dan, there's even a better part of the show, which we've had for a long time. And this part of the show is called, ready for this? Pride in My Ride. This is where our viewers send in a great photo of a car that they have pride in, and they send it to me, jclor@carsandcontext.com. We put it on the air and we talk about it, but this time we've done something special. We've had our buddy here, Dan Brochstein. You've got the selection this week for Pride in My Ride. Tell us what we're going to be seeing here.
A 1941 Lincoln Continental.
Oh my.
As it's pictured here.
Well, that's how, as it looks today.
That's how it looks today.
Oh, God.
We bought that car my last day of high school, 1983.
Uh-oh,
And it
dating
had been
yourself.
in restoration for the 25 years after.
They had high schools in 1983?
They did.
Okay.
They did.
Okay.
It's got a flathead 12 in it.
Oh, wait, we just talked about the V12
flathead,
engine.
yeah.
This is a flathead.
Flathead 12.
Oh, my God. Oh.
My father did most of the restoration work on the car. We brought in specialists for the interior upholstery and the paint.
Oh, my Lord.
Yours truly here even did some work. I did a wiring harness for it.
Oh,
And right now it's pretty much relegated to show duty and parade duty.
Well, it's got the big whites on it. Now, how bad was the car when your dad... Now, folks, if you don't know, Dan's dad, Jerry Brochstein, worked as a designer at General Motors, and I find it interesting that he picked this Lincoln Continental, being a GM guy.
No, he's always loved the look of it.
He loved the shape of the car, and was it in a really bad shape when you got it?
Yeah, it was complete, but it was a basket case.
Ooh.
So
was it running at least, the V12 running?
No, it had a Cadillac V8 in it originally, so we had to source a 12-cylinder for it. But
V12
no, it
was running at a few less
we had to
cylinders.
replace the floors.
Oh, really?
Yep, completely, and that was just scratching the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, my Lord. Well, folks, that is a perfect example. I mean, you don't have to have a fantastically restored classic like that. You can show me your beater, if that's what you need. But as long as you have pride in your ride, send it to me. A picture, a couple of JPEGs, and the reason why you have pride in your ride with your name and your hometown to jclor@carsandcontext.com, and we'll be sure to put it on the air. But the number one most requested part of the show isn't any of these. No. It's when we asked Lauren Parrott, who has her own show on WMTV, we asked Lauren to go rifle through the mailbag and find out if we have viewer mail. Lauren, do we have any viewer mail for today?
John, you have viewer mail every single show.
And well, you dug up more. Thank you for doing this for us, Lauren.
You're so welcome.
Without you doing this, we would have nobody even talking to us.
That's true.
Lauren, another great viewer mailbag. Dan, looks like we got 2 letters here again. Thanks to Lauren to bring that out. The first one I'm going to let you handle. Dan, why don't you take it?
This one comes to us from Natalie P. of Grosse Pointe Woods,
Okay.
who watches Cars in Context on Comcast Cable Channel 915.
Ooh, Natalie, that means you're looking at us in HD. Sorry, Natalie.
She writes, Dear Cars in Context, I read recently that Apple said it is working on with a number of automakers, including General Motors, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, and Hyundai, to integrate its new iOS 7 operating system into cars.
Oh, gosh.
They're going to call it, here's the real imaginative name,
Okay, okay.
iOS in the car.
No, what's the name?
iOS in the car.
No, I know they're going to put it in the car, but what is they going to call it?
Moving on.
Who's on first? They're going to call it iOS in the car?
iOS in the car.
Oh, come on,
Apple.
Apple.
They're all about simplicity.
Oh, jeez.
It's going to have a screen that looks basically like the screen of your iPhone.
Oh, no.
That'll be your 7-inch display screen in the middle with your iPhone control, so you'll feel right at
Are
home.
you serious?
It'll also allow Siri voice commands
No.
to control navigation, entertainment choices, phone, and functions such as heating and cooling. Do you think that iPhone functionality can help automakers sell more cars?
Dan, we're not going to agree on this. So go ahead and answer the question, but go ahead.
I think it will. I think there are a lot of great minds that will not only be able to integrate this, but it'll be able to integrate the safety features to keep it from being another distraction. I think it's just a matter of time before we're there.
So instead of, so you're actually going to be doing this on your 7-inch touchscreen, and you're going to say, Siri, who's got the best sushi in Grosse Pointe? And then is that really what we're going to do?
I believe so. I believe it's
Oh.
because right now people do it using smartphones. They're trying to drive. They're trying to use a smartphone while they're going. If we can take that out of their hands and put the other hand back on the steering wheel, it's a start.
All right. Well, but don't we have this? I mean, we've got like we got OnStar, we have Sirius, we got the Ford, my Ford Touch, my Lincoln Touch. I mean, do we have to? I mean, why the iPhone?
I just think they do interfaces better than anyone else.
Yeah. So you can use your apps and all that stuff too?
Certain apps, sure.
Gosh. Well, folks, if you like that, I mean, that's a great question, Natalie. And now seeing it here with these kind of automakers involved, Dan, it's probably going to come. I think you're right. But I mean, for me, I personally, I don't use a lot of those functions. My wife gets crazy. I mean, I won't even use the radio, or I like to listen to the car. And I mean, I'm all about the driving part.
And I've got everything connected. I'm your complete opposite.
He's such a nerd, which is why he put us on YouTube. If it weren't for Dan, there would be no Cars and Context TV on the YouTube channel because I didn't know how to do it. I had my iOS in the car guy do it. Thank you, Dan. All right, I've got one too. Sorry, thank you for. The world needs nerds. Okay, this one comes to us from Bill M. in Harper Woods, my hometown there, who watches Cars in Context on AT&T Uverse channel 99, which is a good way to see us. It says, Dear John, got a Dear John letter from a guy named Bill. Did I see correctly where a new 2015 Ford Transit replaced the old Mercedes panel van on the History Channel's American Pickers TV series? How stars Mike Wolf and Frank Fitz get to travel around the United States searching for remote and rustic locations, looking for classic gems for resale in a brand new Ford? How did that happen?
I have 2 words: product placement.
Okay, Bill, that is a great question. The answer is yes, you did see correctly. If you see the old, what is it, Sprinter van? If you see that old van, that's an old episode. So you're right. Dan is right. What Ford has done is they saw this van. They say, hey, we got a new tall van now, and it's replacing the E-Series. Actually, we're going to have one more year of selling the old Econolines next to these new vans, and then they will come out with this replacement. So you're right. They replaced them, and why? Because it is product placement. Why not?
Yeah.
So when you see that new Transit out there, and they're driving in a Ford, that's the classic example of some sharp marketing mind at Ford Motor Company say, what an opportunity to show Transit off. That's a great question. If you have a question for us that you'd like Lauren Parrott to dig through the mailbag for and bring out and have us read on the air, send it to me, jclor@carsincontext.com, and we'll put it on the air. And Dan, you know what? We're out of time.
Okay.
Already. How does that happen?
Goes by quickly.
Thanks for coming by again.
Hey, thanks
Dan
for having me
Brochstein,
here. I
your
appreciate
freelance
it.
stuff is the best there is.
Thank you.
And folks, you are the best there is for watching Cars and Context. And remember until next time that knowledge is power. I've been your host, John Clor, and thanks for watching.